Hi guys, today we're going to go through the IGCSE core paper 1 to February-March 2026 for CIE. So the first question starts off with a question about solid, liquids and gases. So you've got which row shows the conditions for the particles of a gas colliding least frequently. So first of all, we've got two conditions, temperature and pressure. So you have to remember first of all, that if you have a higher temperature, this means your particles are going to have more kinetic energy. So high temperature means more kinetic energy in the particles, and if they've got more kinetic energy, they're going to move faster, and therefore they're going to collide more frequently. So any answer involving high temperature is incorrect. Next, low temperature means you have particles with less kinetic energy, so they will collide least frequently. So your answer has to be either B or D. Next, pressure. If you've got a high pressure, this means your particles are squeezed into a small space, so smaller volume. And this means that they are more likely to collide more frequently because they are really close together. So any answer involving high pressure is also wrong. And finally then, low pressure means you've got a greater volume, so your particles are separated out more, and therefore you will have collisions least frequently. So your answer is D. Question 2. Liquid bromine is placed in a sealed gas jar as shown. After 1 hour at room temperature, the liquid bromine has something, and the gas jar becomes completely full of bromine vapor by a process called something. So first of all, they've told you that you've got liquid bromine at room temperature, so you're not heating this up, and the gas jar is then going to be fully occupied by bromine vapor, so a gas. So the first option, the liquid bromine has evaporated, is correct. It can't be boiling because you're not heating up this gas jar. And blank number 2, so the gas jar becomes fully, completely full of bromine vapor. This is going to be diffusion, because diffusion is the random movement of particles until they are evenly spread out. Distillation is completely different. This involves separating a mixture using boiling points, and you're not heating anything, so your answer is A. Next, which row identifies an element, a compound, and a mixture? So first of all, an element contains atoms of, so it contains only one type of atom only. So your answer over here is either iron or copper. Compounds, remember, is when 2 or more elements are joined together. So in this case, potassium bromide is correct. Aqueous sodium nitrate would actually be 2 different compounds. So aqueous refers to water, and sodium nitrate is another compound. And then finally a mixture. So a mixture would be a mixture of elements and compounds, or compounds or elements only, where they are not chemically combined. So potassium iodide is actually a compound, just a compound. And over here, aqueous sodium nitrate, aqueous means you've got water, and sodium nitrate, you've got the compound sodium nitrate. So this is a mixture of 2 compounds, water and sodium nitrate. So your answer is B. Next question, X and Y are both atoms. X and Y are isotopes of the same element. So here you need to recall the definition for isotopes, which are atoms of the same element with the same proton number, but different neutron number. So using this information then, let's look at each option. So A, neutrons are the same, so your answer can't be A. B, neutrons are different and proton is the same, so your answer is B. In C, it's a completely different element because protons are different. Remember, proton number is what dictates the identity of an element. Every single atom has a unique proton number. And this one again, D, proton number is different, so it's completely different atoms. Question 5. An atom forms an ion with a positive charge. 4 statements about the atom and the ion are listed. So first of all, positively charged ions are called cations. You can remember this in 2 ways. So cations, the T looks like a plus, so it's the positive ions. Or you can remember positive ions are cations, like cat's paws. So correct answer here would be 2, not 1. Anions are negatively charged ions. Cations are positive. Then you need to remember that atoms are normally neutral because they have the same number of electrons and protons. So an ion is normally formed when an atom gains or loses electrons to achieve a full outer shell. So you can have an ion that is positive and an ion that is negative. So in this case, we're looking for which ion will have a positive charge. So the first option, there are fewer electrons in the ion than in the atom, and second option would be there are more protons in the ion than in the atom. So first of all, proton number is not even going to change because ions are formed when electrons are gained and lost. So automatically this is wrong. And then here, fewer electrons in the ion than in the atom. This would be correct because if you're losing electrons, this means overall there's going to be an imbalance of electron and proton number. And you're going to end up with more protons than electrons, so an overall positive charge. So your answer is 2 and 3, so C. Next question, which row describes the type of bonding present in substances 1 and 2? It says methane has ionic bonding. Well, that is wrong. Methane is CH4. It's a compound made up of non-metals, so this must contain covalent bonding. Next, hydrogen chloride has ionic bonding, so this is HCl. This again is wrong, it would have covalent. Potassium chloride has ionic bonding, KCl. This is going to be a metal with a non-metal, so this is correct. And sodium bromide, NaBr, metal and non-metal, has ionic bonding as well. So let's look at this side now. Substance 2, methane has covalent bonding. Yep, that is correct. And obviously this would have been wrong because it has ionic. So your answer is C. Next, diagrams X, Y, and Z show part of a polymer structure and 2 giant covalent structure. So a polymer would be X. It's a long chain of molecules. Y, you should be able to identify this as diamond. And Z is graphite. You should know that these two are allotropes of carbon. So it's carbon but in different forms. Which row shows the structures with the correct use? Cutting tool and reducing friction. So cutting tool you should know is diamond. So your answer automatically is B. Reducing friction, well, you know that graphite is used as lubricating agent since it's soft and slippery, so that's also correct. Next, aqueous copper 2 chloride reacts with aqueous sodium hydroxide. What is the equation for this reaction? So first of all, copper 2 chloride, the 2 refers to the charge of the copper, the oxidation number of the copper, which is +2. Transition metals, remember, have variable oxidation states. So this means that copper is +2. And you know that chlorine is in group 7, so it's going to be -1. So the formula of copper chloride will be CuCl2, because overall you need to balance out your charges, so you need another -1 here. So automatically these two options are wrong. Next, this is now forming copper hydroxide and sodium chloride. So now copper hydroxide, copper again is +2. And hydroxide, you need to know the charge of this polyatomic ion is -1. So once again, in a compound, overall charges must add up to 0. So you need 2 lots of hydroxides. So the formula of copper hydroxide is CuOH2. So your answer is C. What is the definition of the relative atomic mass, AR, of an element? So this you need to remember as well. So this is always compared to carbon-12, the masses of elements. So C and D are automatically wrong. And finally, you need to know that this is the average mass of the isotopes of the element compared to 1/12 of the mass of an atom of carbon-12. So definition you need to learn. Question 10. Which substance can be used as the electrolyte in an electrolysis experiment? So first of all, you need to remember that electrolysis is the breakdown of an ionic compound when molten or in aqueous solution by the passage of electricity. So this has to be an ionic compound, which consists of a metal and a non-metal. So automatically this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So your answer is D. And this is an aqueous ionic compound. 11. What is formed at each electrode when molten sodium oxide is electrolyzed using inert electrodes? So sodium oxide, you've got Na plus ions and O2 minus ions. So here you've got the anode and the cathode. Add for anode, so anode is your positive electrode and cathode is your negative electrode. You can remember it as anions are attracted to the anode, so anions go to the anode, and cations are attracted to the cathode. So anions are your negative ones, cations are your positively charged ions. So in this case, sodium then is a positively charged ion. It will attract to the opposite, so it will go to the cathode. And oxygen is a negatively charged ion, so it will go to the anode. So in this case, your answer would be D. Question 12, which row describes the changes during an endothermic reaction? So endothermic is when temperature decreases and energy is taken in from the surroundings. Exothermic, remember, is when energy is released to the surroundings. So your answer is C. Question 13, an experiment is done to find the rate of reaction when 1 gram of solid X reacts with 100 centimeter cubed of solution Y. The experiment takes place too quickly for the measurements to be made. Which change can be made to slow down the reaction? So first option is adding a catalyst. Well, that's wrong because adding a catalyst speeds up the reaction. Decreasing the concentration of solution Y. Well, yes, that would slow down the reaction because there's going to be less particles available per unit volume, so lower probability of collisions. Let's quickly look at the rest. Decreasing the particle size of solid X, decreasing particle size, increasing surface area, this means. So this is wrong because this would speed up the reaction, and increasing temperature also speeds up the reaction. So your answer is B. Which type of reaction occurs when water is added to anhydrous cobalt chloride? So this is a test for water you need to remember. So cobalt chloride .6H2O would be your hydrated compound. And here what they're asking you is you're adding water to the anhydrous compound. So you need to know this reaction. So cobalt chloride plus 6H2O will form the hydrated version. So the color change as well here is from blue to pink. You need to know this test. It's a test for water. So this arrow, remember, means reversible reaction. So your answer is A. Question 15. Nitrogen and oxygen can form the compound nitrogen 2 oxide. Which statements about the Roman numeral in nitrogen 2 oxide are correct? So remember, the Roman numeral is normally given as information when you need to find out the oxidation number of the element before. So this means that oxidation number of nitrogen is +2. So this is correct. This is wrong. It indicates that the formula of nitrogen 2 oxide contains 2 nitrogen atoms. Well, no, because in compounds containing non-metals, this would be given as prefixes. So 2 would mean di. And there's nothing over here for that, so your answer is only 1, so B. Next, what is the color of thymolphthalene in dilute sulfuric acid? This is indicators. You need to know the color of thymolphthalene in acid and in alkali. So in acid, thymolphthalene is colorless, and in alkali it's blue. So here, sulfuric acid, then your color of thymolphthalene will be colorless, so B. Which row describes a metal oxide and an alkali? So metal oxides are normally bases, and an alkali is just a water-soluble base. So in this case, it would be D. Next question, the periodic table shows the position of 4 different elements. So you need to find out which row is correct for the element and the number of electrons in the outer shell. So if you remember, number of electrons in the outer shell is linked to group number. So this is group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So in this case, number of electrons in the outer shell for each element. So A is in group 4, so that's incorrect. B is in group 3, so that's incorrect. C is in group 1, so that's incorrect. And D is in group 7 indeed, so it does have 7 electrons in the outer shell, and group 7s are the halogens, so the answer is D. So it's a non-metal. Next, rubidium is a group 1 metal. It has a density of 1.53 grams per centimeter cubed and a melting point of 39 degrees. Cesium is also a group 1 metal. Which statement gives the melting point and density of cesium? So first of all, this is talking about group 1 and properties of group 1. So rubidium and cesium. Cesium is below rubidium in the periodic table. So it's lower down in the group. So normally as you go down group 1, density will increase because you've basically got density is grams divided by, so mass divided by volume, sorry. So as you go down, atom size gets bigger, so volume will be bigger and mass is also bigger. So your answer is either C or D. And it's talking about melting point. So as you go down group 1, melting point also increases. So your answer is D. Next, which statement about iodine is correct? So iodine is in group 7. And group 7, the halogens, they exist in pairs. They're diatomic molecules. So the first answer is wrong because it's not monatomic. It says then it is a solid at room temperature and pressure. Well, that is correct. So you need to know as you go down group 7, you go from gaseous elements being fluorine and chlorine, bromine is a liquid, and iodine, acetine are solids. Although iodine, you need to know it sublimes at room temperature, so it becomes a gas as well. So the answer is B. Next, platinum is a transition metal. Which statement about platinum is correct? So transition metals are unique. So first of all, it says it does not catalyze reactions. Well, that is incorrect because transition metals and their compounds are very good catalysts. It forms colored compounds. Yep, that is correct. Copper is sometimes used to make cooking utensils. These properties of copper are listed. Which properties make copper a suitable metal for cooking utensils? So this time you need to think about cooking. So corrosion resistant, yep, that would be something useful when you're cooking. And good conductor of electricity, well, although it is a good conductor of electricity, this is not really useful for cooking. And good conductor of heat, yep, this would be useful for cooking. So your answer is 1 and 3, so A. Magnesium is a typical metal. 3 reactions of magnesium are listed. So you have the first one, magnesium plus oxygen. This makes magnesium oxide. Next, we've got magnesium plus steam. You form again magnesium oxide and a new substance Y. And then finally, magnesium and sulfuric acid makes same substance Y and a substance Z. So in this case, we've got to find out what Y and Z are. So magnesium and steam will form magnesium oxide and hydrogen. And the next one is metal plus acid, which will make a salt and hydrogen again. So substance Y must be hydrogen. So substance Z must be magnesium sulfate. So this is your salt. So remember, a salt is formed when the metal is replacing, the hydrogen in sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid, H2SO4. The hydrogen is getting replaced with the metal in this case, which is magnesium. And you're going to form the metal sulfate salt. So your answer is C. Z is magnesium sulfate. Next, which statement explains why stainless steel is used to make cutlery? It is softer than pure metal. Well, that's not something useful to make cutlery. It is more resistant to rusting than the pure metal. Yep, that is useful for cutlery. Question 25. Some reactions of 3 metals are shown in the table. What is the order of reactivity of these metals? So you've got 2 reactions. Reaction with acid and with carbon. So in this case, it would be good to remember the reactivity series contains carbon and hydrogen in it. So roughly, let's quickly show you what you're meant to remember here. So this is part of a simple reactivity series. So normally we introduce elements like carbon and hydrogen in there to identify the different sections of this reactivity series. So normally the more reactive metals are at the top, and these are usually extracted from their ores using electrolysis. Then the ones in the middle, which are below carbon but above hydrogen, these are extracted from their ores by reacting it with carbon. And then these are normally found naturally as elements in the ground. So using this then, any metal that reacts with hydrochloric acid would be your reactive metals. So your least reactive metal automatically would be R. So your answer is either A or C. Next, metal oxide is reduced by carbon. So this means that this certain metal, in this case, that is reduced by carbon, must be below carbon in the reactivity series. So we already knew that R is below carbon because it's a less reactive element, and the other one would be P. So the next mid-reactive metal would be P. So your answer automatically is C. And Q, it tells you that it doesn't react with carbon, so that's the most reactive element. So it's definitely above carbon in the reactivity series. Next, we've got 2 reactions occur inside a blast furnace. which type of reactions are 1 and 2. So the first thing you have to remember is the two types of reaction. So redox normally involves reduction and oxidation, and thermal decomposition is the breakdown of a compound using heat. So reaction 2 automatically is showing you the breakdown of a compound. So reaction 2 is definitely thermal decomposition. And reaction 1 is a redox reaction, because here iron has lost oxygen and carbon monoxide has gained oxygen, so that's redox. So the answer is B. Next, 4 processes are listed. Which processes are used in the treatment of domestic water supply? So here it's useful just remembering that treating water involves these main steps. So you've got sedimentation. This is normally used to remove solids. Then you filter it, so filtration. Then you use charcoal to remove tastes and odors. And then finally we chlorinate it, so chlorination. So this normally kills any microbes, any harmful microbes. So automatically, which processes are used in the treatment of water? Using these processes listed, filtration is used, sedimentation is used, distillation is not used, and chlorination is used. So your answer is 1, 2, and 4, so B. Next, which statement explains why river water containing NPK fertilizers is harmful to aquatic life? So first of all, if fertilizers get into river water, this will increase the amount of algae in river water, and algae will be covering the top layer of the water, and therefore this will impede oxygen and other nutrients reaching the bottom. So it says NPK fertilizer cause diseases in plants and animal lives? Nope. NPK fertilizers contain harmful microbes? Nope. Can cause deoxygenation of water? Yes. And NPK fertilizers contains plastics? No. Next, which gas is approximately 21% of clean dry air? Well, you should know that 78% of air is nitrogen and 21% of air is actually oxygen. So your answer is oxygen D. The 1% of other gases normally involves argon and carbon dioxide. So that's in the 1% of other. And nitrogen, remember, is 78. Next, carbon dioxide is naturally present in the air. An increased amount of carbon dioxide in the air is a cause of global warming. Which row shows one way to increase and one way to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide in the air? So let's look at decreasing carbon dioxide first. So using electric cars, yep, this does decrease carbon dioxide. Using solar power, yep. Burning methane in power station, well, this is burning a fuel. Burning fuels normally produces carbon dioxide and water, so no. And planting trees, yep, that does decrease carbon dioxide because they need this for photosynthesis. Increases carbon dioxide. Reduction in livestock farming, well, that's going to reduce methane stuff, so no. Wind generation of electricity, this actually decreases carbon dioxide because it's a renewable source of energy. Using hydrogen as fuel, well, this decreases carbon dioxide because hydrogen is a very clean fuel, it just forms water as a waste product. And finally, using diesel, yep, this is just a fuel which you're combusting to form CO2 and water. Next, the structures of 3 compounds are shown. Which statement explains why these 3 compounds have similar chemical properties? So in organic chemistry, similar chemical properties usually comes from having the same functional group. So in this case, the functional group is the same. These are halogenalkanes. Bromine is the same functional group, so your answer is B. Which row shows the correct information? So firstly, A is an alkene and it says it is ethene. Well, remember, you have different prefixes, gives you information about the number of carbons. So here we've got 1, 2, and 3 carbons. So number of carbons. 1 would be meth, 2 would be eth, 3 would be prop. So in this case, this is wrong. This would be propene. Next one, OH functional group is alcohol. Yep. And then the name is not quite correct, because if you remember, the functional group also gives you the ending of the compound. So alkanes, they have endings with ane. Alkene, end in ene. Alcohol ends in ol, and carboxylic acids ends in oic acid. So in this case, this is the wrong compound. Next we have, this is an alkane, yep, and the compound is ethane, yes, so your answer is C. The last one as well, this would be wrong because COOH is the functional group for carboxylic acids. Next, X, Y, and Z are fractions obtained from the fractional distillation of petroleum. The diagram shows the relative volatility of the fractions. So remember, volatility is a measure of how quickly something vaporizes. So vaporizes means going from a liquid or solid to a gas. So in this case, you need to remember the different fractions when you're doing fractional distillation of crude oil or petroleum, and you should know the order as being gasoline or petrol near the top, then you have naphtha, kerosene, fuel oil, lubricating oil, and bitumen at the bottom. Bitumen is a thick, viscous liquid, so that's going to be your least volatile one. Bitumen is used to make roads, so automatically using that, you already know your answer is C. And we can double check chemical feedstock and fuel for diesel engines. Those would be your more volatile fractions. Next, which statement about alkenes is correct? Alkenes are saturated molecules containing a C-to-C double bond. Well, C-to-C double bond is correct, but normally alkenes are unsaturated. Alkenes are hydrocarbons with the general formula CnH2n plus 2. Well, that would be incorrect. It's just CnH2n. Alkenes react with aqueous bromine to give a color change from brown to colorless. So this is decolorizes the bromine water. So yes, that is a test for alkenes. And the last one, alkenes are manufactured from larger alkene molecules in a process called combustion. Well, they're actually manufactured from larger alkane or alkene molecules, and the process is called cracking. So that would be wrong. Next, ethanol is burned in some camping stoves for cooking. Which statement about the use of ethanol in camping stoves are correct? Ethanol acts as a fuel when it burns. Yep. It burns to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Well, hydrogen is incorrect. It would be water. Carbon dioxide is correct though. So that would be wrong. The reaction that takes place when ethanol burns is exothermic. Yep, because it's giving out heat energy. It's providing energy. So your answer is 1 and 3, so A. Next, which solid reacts with dilute ethanoic acid to produce a gas? So dilute ethanoic acid would be a weak acid. And these are your normal reactions of acids. So sodium is a metal and the rest are bases. So you need to remember metal plus acid. gives you a salt and hydrogen, which is a gas. So definitely 1 is correct. And then base or alkali plus acid makes a salt and water. And finally, one type of base, which is a metal carbonate plus acid, gives you a salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. So again, you've got gas. So the way you distinguish a base from an alkali, remember, alkalis are group 1 metal hydroxides, and a base is normally a solid, insoluble normally in water, and it is normally a metal oxide or a hydroxide that's not group 1, or a metal carbonate. So in this case, out of the other 3 options, the only other one that gives you a gas would be option 4. So your answer is 1 and 4, so B. Because 1 forms hydrogen and 4 would form CO2, carbon dioxide. Next, 4 statements about polyethylene are listed. It is a plastic, it is formed by addition polymerization. So yes, it is a plastic. It is formed by addition polymerization, yep, because it's an alkene. It is formed from small molecules called polymers. That would be wrong. Small molecules called monomers. And it burns to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Again, hydrogen is wrong. It would be water. So your answer is 1 and 2, so A. Next, the diagram shows liquids in a burette and a measuring cylinder. Which row shows the correct readings for the burette and the measuring cylinder? So first of all, you need to remember that burette 0 is at the top. And you're normally measuring how much liquid has been added into whatever is below. So here as well, this has to be to 1 decimal place for burette readings. So the value here would be 26 point, so this is 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 27.8 would be your answer. And then remember, a measuring cylinder, you're filling up from the bottom, so 0's at the bottom. So this is going to be, it's divided into 2's, so this is 42 and 44. So your answer is B. Next, the diagram shows a chromatogram for an ink sample and 4 other dyes. Which dyes could be part of the ink sample? So here, remember, the different spots actually tell you something about the solubility of each ink. So first of all, we've got these 2 spots also appear in 4. So ink contains definitely dye number 4. And it also contains this one over here. This one over here is not a pure sample, so it's actually a mixture of these 2, which would be this. So which dyes could be part of the ink sample? It would be dye 2 and dye 4. So your answer would be D. And lastly, aqueous sodium hydroxide is added to solid X and the mixture is heated. A green precipitate is formed and an alkaline gas is given off. Which ions are present in X? So this is using your qualitative analysis notes. That is normally given in paper 6 at the back. And a precipitate is usually formed for your cations. So they've got ion 2+ and ion 3+. So green precipitate I always remember this as ion 2 plus and ion 3 plus, 2 and 3. So green has two E's, so green PPT normally belongs to ion, and red-brown PPT is seen for ion 3 plus, and I remember red has 3 letters, so it has to be ion 2 plus. And then an alkaline gas that is given off when you're adding sodium hydroxide is normally ammonia gas, and ammonia gas is normally given off from ammonium ions. So your answer is A. Thank you very much for watching.